No human had ever been summoned before the Queen of Verelia. That alone told Commander Elias Rowan that something had gone terribly wrong. The chamber he was led into was not merely a throne room. It was a living monument to an alien civilization older than Earth's recorded history. Vast crystalline pillars rose from the floor like frozen lightning, pulsing faintly with bioluminescent veins. The air hummed with a low harmonic frequency that Elias felt in his bones more than his ears. At the far end, elevated on a dais of obsidian and light, sat Queen Sereth of Verelia. She was watching him long before he reached the center of the room. Elias had trained himself to remain calm under pressure. Battlefields, collapsing starships, first contact negotiations, but the Queen's gaze unsettled him. Her eyes were multifaceted, reflecting faint echoes of himself from impossible angles. Her crown was not metal, but grown from living crystal, bonded seamlessly to her elongated skull. Around them stood the High Council, tall and willowy Verelians wrapped in ceremonial robes. Their expressions were unreadable, but the tension in the room was unmistakable. "You may speak," Queen Sereth said, her voice resonating directly inside his mind, bypassing sound altogether. Elias straightened. "Commander Elias Rowan of the United Terran Coalition. I was informed this summons concerned the Joint Defense Treaty." A flicker of something passed across the Queen's features. Amusement, perhaps. Or pity. "The treaty is irrelevant now," she replied. "Our world is dying." The words struck harder than any weapon. The Verelians were not merely allies. They were a cornerstone species in the interstellar balance, biotechnologists capable of stabilizing stars, healers who could regenerate entire ecosystems. If they were dying, how? Elias asked. Queen Sereth gestured, and the chamber darkened. A projection blossomed in the air, a massive, roiling anomaly consuming energy, matter, and time itself. "The null bloom," she said. "A parasitic cosmic phenomenon. It feeds on life-rich systems. Our planet's biosphere has slowed it for now. But in less than 3 cycles, Verelia will collapse." Elias swallowed. "And you believe humanity can help?" The Queen's gaze sharpened. "No," she said softly. "We believe one human can." The room fell silent. Elias felt every counselor's attention lock onto him. "Me," he said. "Why?" "Because your species is incompatible with the bloom," Sereth replied. "Your neural architecture, your genetic resilience. Humans are uniquely resistant to its consumption. But resistance is not immunity." A second projection formed, this one a humanoid silhouette standing at the core of the anomaly. "To stop the bloom, a living conduit must enter its heart and bond with our planetary core," the Queen continued. "The process requires a mind capable of surviving paradox feedback and a body capable of sustaining impossible energy flux." Elias understood before she finished. "You want me to go in," he said. "Alone?" "Yes." "And the bargain?" he asked quietly. Queen Sereth rose from her throne. When she stepped down from the dais, the floor itself reshaped beneath her feet. "If you succeed," she said, "Verelia will be saved. Our fleets, our science, our legacy, all will be pledged to humanity for as long as your species endures. And if I fail?" The Queen met his eyes without flinching. "Then you will die," she said. "And we will follow." Middle. The preparation took days, though it felt like a lifetime compressed into moments. Elias was moved into the core sanctum, a living structure grown around the planetary heart of Verelia. There, Verelian scientists, biologists, psionic engineers, and temporal theorists worked around him constantly. They did not treat him like a soldier. They treated him like a sacrifice. The neural interface they built was unlike anything human science had conceived. Organic filaments bonded directly to his nervous system, not painfully, but intimately, as if his body recognized them as extensions of itself. "You are afraid," said Dr. Thraxis, the lead bioarchitect, her voice gentle. "I'd be insane not to be," Elias replied. She inclined her head. "Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more." He gave a weak smile. "You sound like one of ours." "I studied human philosophy extensively," she said. "Especially your concept of choice." That word followed Elias everywhere. No one had forced him. The Queen had made that clear. Humanity had even sent a delayed transmission advising caution, negotiation, alternatives. But there were no alternatives. During the final briefing, Queen Sereth herself joined him within the sanctum. She dismissed the attendants, leaving them alone beside the glowing planetary core, a sphere of radiant energy suspended in a lattice of living crystal. "There is something I have not told you," she said. Elias braced himself. "That's never a good sentence." "The bond will change you," she continued. "If you survive, you will not return as you are now. Your mind will carry echoes of our world. Your body will be altered." "How altered?" he asked. The Queen hesitated. "You will outlive your species," she said finally. "And you will be forever tied to Virelia's fate." Elias let out a slow breath. "Immortality, with strings attached. Yes." He studied her face. "Is that part of the bargain?" "It is the cost," she said. "One I could not justify forcing upon you without consent." Silence stretched between them. "Why me?" Elias asked again, softer this time. Queen Sereth looked away toward the core. "Because when our scouts observed humanity, you stood out. Not for your strength, not your intelligence, but for what you do when faced with extinction." She turned back to him. "You choose others over yourselves." Elias thought of Earth's battered colonies, of soldiers holding lines they knew would break, of evacuation ships launched even when there weren't enough seats. He nodded. "When do we start?" The Queen reached out and placed her hand over his heart. A warmth spread through him, steady, grounding. "Now." The descent into the null bloom was nothing like spaceflight. There was no motion, no direction, only pressure. Reality folded in on itself as Elias was guided along an energy conduit stretching from Virelia's core into the anomaly. Colors inverted. Time stuttered. Memories surfaced unbidden. He saw Earth, his childhood home, faces of people he'd lost. Focus, he told himself. The bloom resisted him immediately. It was not sentient, not in the way a being was, but it reacted like a wounded predator. Tendrils of anti-energy lashed against his consciousness, trying to unmake the patterns that defined him. Pain exploded through his nervous system. The interface flared, amplifying his thoughts, anchoring him. "I am human," he thought fiercely. "I endure." He reached the heart of the bloom, a void where physics broke down entirely. The planetary core's energy surged through him, and for a terrifying moment, Elias felt himself dissolving. Then he chose. He didn't fight the bloom. He embraced it. He let his human adaptability do what it had always done, change. The energies intertwined, stabilized. The bloom's consumption slowed, then reversed, feeding excess entropy back into the planetary core. Elias screamed, but not in pain, in transformation. Ending when Elias awoke, he was no longer alone inside his own mind. He could feel Virelia, its oceans, its forests of crystalline flora, the heartbeat of its core, all resonated within him like a second soul. He was suspended in light, no longer bound by gravity or flesh as he had known it. And yet he was still himself. The null bloom had collapsed into a dormant state, its energy converted into a stabilizing shell around the system. Virelia was safe. Slowly, Elias was drawn back. The chamber reformed around him. The core sanctum pulsed gently, no longer strained. Virelian scientists stared in stunned silence as his body solidified, settling onto the platform. Queen Sereth was at his side instantly. "You live," she said, awe and relief woven into her voice. Elias opened his eyes. They glowed faintly with the same bioluminescence as the core. "Define live," he rasped. A sound escaped the queen, half laughter, half reverent disbelief. "You succeeded beyond our greatest hopes," she said. "The bloom is neutralized permanently." He sat up slowly. His movements were fluid, effortless. He could feel energy currents the way he once felt muscle tension. "And the bargain?" he asked. Queen Sereth knelt before him. "From this day forward," she declared, her voice echoing throughout the chamber, "Virelia stands bound to humanity. Our fleets, our knowledge, our protection, all pledged in honor of the one who saved us." The council followed suit, bowing as one. Elias looked at them, then down at his own hands, hands that now shimmered faintly with internal light. "I guess I'm stuck with you," he said quietly. The queen met his gaze. "No," she replied gently. "You are one of us now." Years passed. Humanity prospered alongside Virelia, ushered into a new age of interstellar unity. The name Elias Rowan became legend, a bridge between species, a living testament to sacrifice and choice. And at the heart of Virelia, the queen and the human guardian watched over a world saved by a single decision. One human had accepted the queen's dangerous bargain, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The first thing Elias Rowan realized was that silence no longer meant emptiness. He stood at the threshold between the core sanctum and the world beyond, feeling the steady rhythm of Virelia beneath his feet. Not hearing it, knowing it. The planet's pulse was now part of him, as natural as his own heartbeat had once been. Crowds had gathered outside the sanctum. Virelians from every caste and city filled the vast terraces carved into living crystal. Their bioluminescent markings shimmered in unison as Elias emerged beside Queen Sereth. When they saw him, the light intensified. A sound rolled through the air, not applause, not cheers, but a harmonic resonance of gratitude that vibrated through his bones. Elias instinctively steadied himself. The emotional weight of millions of minds pressing gently against his awareness was almost overwhelming. Queen Sereth raised one elegant hand, and the resonance softened. "People of Virelia," she proclaimed, her voice carried across the planet through the core itself, "behold the one who stood where no Virelian could. The one who entered annihilation and returned bearing our future." She turned to Elias. "Human," she said, her tone formal but warm, "your bargain is fulfilled. Our world endures." Elias took a breath he technically no longer needed. "I didn't do it alone," he said. His voice carried farther than it should have, threaded with planetary energy. "Your world met me halfway. You trusted me when you had every reason not to." A murmur rippled through the gathered masses. "But understand this," he continued. "I didn't save Virelia because of treaties or rewards. I did it because extinction should never be the price of survival." Queen Sereth stepped closer, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "You have changed us," she said, "in ways that will echo for millennia." "And you changed me," Elias replied. Years later, history struggled to define Elias Rowan. Human records called him the conduit. Virelian archives named him the living accord. Some younger species whispered of him as something closer to myth, a being who stood at the intersection of will and cosmic law. Elias outlived every human he had ever known. He attended funerals where no one aged but him, watched Earth evolve, fracture, heal, and expand. He never ruled, never commanded fleets. That had never been his purpose. Instead, he became something rarer, a witness. When conflicts arose between species, Elias was there, not as a judge, but as proof that cooperation was not naive. When extinction-level threats emerged, he was consulted not as a weapon, but as someone who understood the cost of survival. And always, he returned to Verelia. Queen Sereth ruled for centuries longer than any before her, sustained by the stabilized planetary core. Their relationship defied simple labels. Not lovers in the human sense, not merely allies. They were bound by a shared choice. On the day Sereth finally felt the end of her reign approaching, she summoned Elias to the core sanctum once more. "The planet will endure without me," she said calmly, "but it will never forget you." Elias stood beside her, hands clasped behind his back. "I never wanted to be remembered," he said. She smiled, a small, genuine expression reserved only for him. "And yet," she replied, "you will be." As her life force returned gently to the core she had guarded all her days, Elias felt the transition like a quiet sunset. No pain, no loss, only completion. The final truth. Centuries later, when a new generation asked Elias why he had accepted the Queen's dangerous bargain, he gave the same answer every time. "Because someone had to," he said. Not because he was special, not because he was fearless, but because he was human. And humanity's greatest strength had never been dominance, or technology, or conquest. It had always been this. When the universe demanded a price for survival, one human was willing to pay it, so others wouldn't have to. At the heart of Verelia, beneath stars long since catalogued and forgotten, Elias Rowan stood watch. A guardian not born of prophecy, but of choice.